Kia ora, everybody. We've taken like 3 goes at this, but it's all good. We've only introed it once, and so I'll go again with Michael. I sort of saw him on an NZDA Auckland talking about he was going to be holding an event at one of their meetings about training for hunting. And then sure enough, as these things tend to happen, NZ Hunter shows up Michael's page again, giving advice to hunters out there. You can read about it, how to do things. And we always start the podcast with what you did in the weekend, Michael. So kick us into it. You've heard me say this already, so let's hear it now.
Yeah, good day. Well, the weekend it started off with a boot camp at 0800. So taking some of the squad through, a circuit training session at 8 o'clock. Headed off for a bit of a coffee after that. Then the evening kind of comprised of my own workout and then catching up with a couple of mates. It was his birthday, so headed into town and caught up for the Foals concert at Auckland Town Hall. So great gig. And Sunday morning, shot off to church, and that evening we actually managed to get out for a couple of bunnies as well. Bit of spotlighting and got a few possums and got some stuff for the pot. So it was cool weekend.
Lovely. And how easy access is that for you, mate?
In terms of the access for the hunting?
Yeah, for those small sort of varmint stuff, and then going a big frigate.
Yeah, I guess it's a case of, asking around, and I think the more people you know, the more people they know. So it's a case of just, just sort of getting known, with a few key people, and of course, being respectful around, if you're given an opportunity to shoot somewhere or to do some hunting, just to really appreciate, the opportunity. I sort of think that sort of thing is a blessing, especially living up in Auckland here. It's not the easiest to find hunting locations or gathering spots. So we sort of look after those that look after us, so to speak.
Absolutely, mate. So you mentioned the gym there. Is that your gym, the gym you work out of, or how does that work for you, mate?
Yeah, so during the week, my role is essentially as a personal trainer. So I've got a mobile personal training business whereby I just go and train clients at their own homes, or train people at parks. I also do some corporate fitness as well. So shoot over to some corporates that support with, whether that's activity, nutrition, might be some health screening. It could be, building some team culture. We also run 7 or 8 boot camp sessions a week as well. So there's a couple of different modalities of what we do, but the core sort of business is personal training and, doing a little bit of online coaching as well for people that want some support that don't live in Auckland. So we're attached to a few people there through using Zoom and, various other sort of social media platforms as well.
That's wicked, man. And my next guest I'm about to bring on is Jamie Scott, who's big on the corporate wellness stuff. How are you sort of finding that sphere in the place that people are at? Are you pleasantly surprised, or is there a lot of work that can be done, especially amongst big businesses and things like that?
Yeah, I think there is huge scope for corporate wellness to grow. There is, massive need for teams to grow culture. I think, there's a real opportunity to help staff get to know one another through doing physical activity, encouraging doing some fitness work. It might be attending, a workshop on nutrition, however that might look. I think it's a great organic way of just bringing a team together, and that's really undervalued, I think, within the workplace. So you can sort of position the corporate wellness how you like, but I sort of see it as a great opportunity to engage with people during their working day, or whether it is, straight after work. You're sort of taking away the barrier of they need to, go to a gym, or, they need to go and do, like a nutrition course somewhere. If you can bring those services to the workplace, you're already sort of mitigating one of those sort of barriers, which I think is transport and time. So if you make it convenient for the workplace, and you position that in a way so that it's just about staff losing weight, but it's also about, you know, staff improving their mental health. It's about staff becoming better connected to other people who might work in different departments. It's about connecting people with opportunities to become, you know, active and more well, I guess, you know, taking into account that nutrition is a massive component of people's energy levels, and you know, it's not just about being active, but eating well is absolutely vital, you know, in terms of how productive people are as well. Then you're sort of discussing things like ergonomics. How are people sitting at chairs? Are there some standing desks around? How does all of that sort of thing look? So the workplace, if you sort of think about it, you're at work for, let's say, 7, 8, 9 hours a day. It's a third of your day. So if you can incorporate some aspect of wellness into that, I think it's a great opportunity, which probably hasn't been capitalized well enough on the past. So, you know, companies are willing to sort of put some investment into that area of their staff's professional development, I guess.
Now, I like what you said about how it can not just improve the individual's lifestyle, but as a team, you know, I'm a big one for team sports, and I think it's an awesome way to grow leadership and work together. But yeah, when you're taking sort of a covert operation to teamwork, I think that's pretty awesome. Do you see sort of camaraderie build time and time again?
Oh, and that's one of the sort of the glowing references of the wellness support programs that we actually provide in the workplace, is that the CEOs are just saying, look, we didn't really anticipate that we would have, you know, perhaps the warehouse staff speaking to the, you know, the corporate level staff, and everyone's sort of engaging on this sort of, you know, conversations in the staff rooms. People are encouraging one another, which normally, you know, potentially doesn't happen that well. So I think, you know, through facilitating some sort of organized activity, whether it's a social sport that you might set up within the organization, whether it's your weekly sort of fitness session that you deliver on site, it's just a really organic way of building the culture and the rapport between, you know, all of the workers. So it's not, you know, segmenting different roles, but it's just getting everyone involved together. And I think that only has positive outcomes. Some of the CEOs that we sort of went in, you know, to work with, they sort of said, look, we'd like to get our staff more active, and you know, some of them are overweight, so we'd like to see, you know, people sort of taking up some nutrition advice, losing a little bit of weight, getting more energy. But then, you know, when we sort of finished up with the workplace, a lot of the conversation was, look, we're just so overwhelmed that the staff are now talking to each other. They've picked up, you know, recreational hobbies outside of work, and they're actually more energized and productive in their day-to-day offerings for the company. So I sort of see it as an investment that the workplace makes, with just so many positive offshoots, that it is a really wise investment for each and every company.
Yeah, I sort of heard a third-hand tale of Southern Cross instigating Fitbits within their staff, and then creating a bonus scheme around getting 2,000 steps. And again, just this simple thing, you know, to start a conversation, start people talking. Yeah, like you say, one group can have an instant in and an instant relationship based on, oh, you know, what numbers are you up to today? How you going? How have you been? And
Yeah.
you know, it's also dealing with the wellness. And I think as an insurer for our wellness, I think that's a great example to be setting. Is there any other sort of things like that that you're seeing develop out of thinking about how well the staff are?
Yeah, I think, you know, with the development of technology and the state, you know, that we have in terms of for IT, you've got so many apps which are being developed. You've got so many platforms online where you can host online coaching sessions, fitness sessions, online nutrition webinars, and everything like that. And you talk about Fitbits, like something like that, which is so visual, and you've got it on your wrist, and you can sort of keep up to date with your steps. I think that's one of the key things for a program to work well, is that it needs to have a number of different touch points and a frequency of touch points for it to work. There needs to be some sort of accountability aspect to it. And I think that, if you're sort of checking in each day, you can feel encouraged or discouraged or however that might look, but it needs to be sort of kept front of mind for you to continue making that progress. And I think that's sort of where those apps can be useful. You 6 hours a day left, or you might get a nutrition webinar online. You've got that in 1 hour, so let's get set up for that, or however that might look. So I think the technology is really, really useful, but it's a case of just being very intentional about what your goals are. So setting some goals out from the start, starting with some short-term goals. That might be a goal for the end of the week, and then you might set a goal for a month's time, and then your next goal might be 6 months' time. And it doesn't need to be related to weight loss. A lot of people seem to be fixated on weight loss. So I talk to a lot of my clients about body composition instead, because you can actually look better and weigh more than weigh less and not look as good. So it's talking about trying to reduce the body fat that you are carrying, but also trying to increase the amount of muscle mass that you have, so you can be more functional, you can be more mobile, you can have greater strength. So there's a lot of education around those various elements as well. We're seeing mental health, a lot of people presenting with mental health conditions, stress, anxiety, depression. Those things are really highly represented in terms of medical conditions in New Zealand. And to be honest, physical activity is almost like a medicine in itself for some of those conditions. And being intentional about doing something every day, I think, is the key thing. The frequency of the activity, develop the habit, and you'll see the results from there.
That's fantastic, and again, adding to it, that community feeling is another great way to keep anxiety, depression on the down, and keep feeling good. Another thing springs to mind when you spoke about technology there, something I'm obsessed with in the States now. There's a thing called Verta Health, and again, they're not chasing for people to lose weight there or to reverse their diabetes. They're just making sure that the person is eating right, sleeping well, feeling good. The measure they check is what are their ketones at, and so that has the downstream effect of, is their blood sugar good? Are they reversing the diabetes? And hey, like you say, they look at 6 months, 8 months down the track, they're having great success, even to the point where they don't charge the employer / insurer of the employer unless they get the result. And so, like I say, there's massive scope for many things, and I love it that you touched on mental health. Is it sort of something that has been a sidestep in your career path as well, now that you're dealing with things like mental health instead of just being a personal trainer?
I think it's sort of, it comes hand in hand. Sometimes as a personal trainer, you sort of feel like a part-time psychologist, because a lot of clients might sort of present with, I need to lose 10 kilograms, or I'd like to help manage my diabetes more effectively. So I'd like to, take part in some personal training sessions and get some nutrition guidance along the way. And underpinning some of that, and in many cases, a number of people do have some underlying levels of anxiety and depression or stress, and those particular things. You've also got to work with the individual around those, not just about losing the 10 kilos, but how do we position your training program in a way that is going to help address, whether you have anxiety or depression, what other sort of mechanisms can we utilize to help sort of support the uplift in those conditions to enable some further weight loss? Because when we sort of look at addressing weight loss as the first issue, sometimes we've got to take into account those factors which sort of sit underneath that, and some people's are obviously more extreme than others. But my key message to all of my clients is the frequency and being intentional. So trying to do something every day of the week. So let's just say that's 7 days of the week, and then within that 7 days of the week, also stating that, look, not every workout you need to do to be a high intensity workout. The body can't sustain high intensity workouts 7 days of the week. So I like to have what's called an improvement day. And I don't call it a rest day as such, I just call it an improvement day. And that's an opportunity for clients to, whether they are going through some mental health conditions or not, it might be a case of, look, it's going to sit down and read a book on how to manage stress or how to improve anxiety in situations. It could be someone that's dealing with a mobility issue, so they might spend that hour that they might have allocated to exercise, they might spend that stretching or doing some foam roller work. But just the intentionality, I think, is the key message that I put across to clients. And as a result of that, the regular activity, it will help people manage their mental health conditions a lot better. End of story, basically. Yeah.
Nice. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of in the realm of personal training and wellness, is that the guys that are at the top of the echelon, or have been in the game for a while, are really exploring this sort of mental health and sort of where's people's limiting beliefs and how can they address the full person and the full scope of the person. And I've had a couple of conversations on this podcast with some great trainers, and it's awesome to see that. I don't know whether it's the people that I'm attracting or not, but yeah, it's great to see yet another person that's really taken a full scope look at someone. So yeah, that's really cool. And I'm sure it's really rewarding to you as well to get some breakthroughs.
Oh, it is, yeah. And as I said, like, some people come to lose weight, but look, I've been working with them for 6 or 8 weeks, and I've lost a kilo, which is great. But they might come back and say to you, look, well, I can actually get up in the morning now, and I'm not feeling lethargic. I've got energy. I'm getting through the day a lot better. My productivity's improved. My bosses say, you're feeling so much more positive and energized at work, and we've really noticed that change in you. So some of the improvements that clients see obviously can be quite subjective as well in terms of their energy or productivity. It's not all weight loss. It's not all about a change in their HbA1c levels or something like that. It's just, yeah, there's different reasons why people sort of search for personal trainers, and I think there's also an element, and I sort of touched on it before, about being almost like a part-time psychologist, because some clients that you work with, you may only do half an hour of physical activity, and 20 minutes is probably talking through some of the issues which may be presented, or it's almost sort of like you have got someone to confide in, and you sort of get the download each week, and that's part of the role. It's not just about thrashing people and getting them to do burpees all session. It's about being an active listener and trying to adapt your training styles, and also sometimes your lifestyle prescription for that particular client, because I guess that's why it's called a personal trainer. You've got to adapt your delivery methods to that particular person, not just have a set program or modality of conditioning clients, but just really sort of get to that individual level. And some people take a lot longer to make progress than others, and that's how it is. There's no formula.
Yeah, nice. we've got some rats or something jumping on the communication lines there. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, there we're back in business now. What do you sort of do? Like you said, at times with some clients, it can be a download process for them. What do you then do to download yourself at the end of the day or at the end of a week? How do you sort of then unload yourself? I hope it doesn't all go to your wife.
um, yeah, a bit of it goes that way. So I think that's only normal, but I really get a lot out of just having some own time as well. So some personal time, whether that's doing some physical activity myself, just listening to some nice music. Getting outside is one of the key things for me. I don't necessarily sort of have to have a deep and meaningful conversation every day, but definitely the wife receives a few of those one-way downloads, and I try and reciprocate when and where I can. But yeah, those conversations need to be had, I think. And as a result of that, look, you can get some really good solutions from it. We have a connect group here at our place that we host every week, so we just get a lot of sort of like-minded people. Some people coming from church, some people coming from the community, and we just talk to each other about how is life treating you. Are there any issues that we can sort of support you with? And everyone's very open, sharing what's going on, what's not going on, what's working well for them, what has worked well in the past. And it's a case of having a little bit of a support network around you, I guess. I've also got a lot of personal trainer friends, and so we sort of discuss clients that we're working with, in a confidential manner. We don't obviously disclose clients' names and explicit details or anything like that, but it's a great sort of platform to be able to share knowledge, resource, and continue learning as well. I think that's one of the things in every profession. You want to learn more so you can do more, and you can continue to build people's lives. And that's not just through sort of sitting in your own little box thinking you know everything, but going on professional development courses and stretching yourself. I think that's one of the key things, reaching further, learning more, and asking lots of questions. I think that's how you learn. Ask questions. Don't stay quiet. Yeah.
That's wicked, mate. And so then where does the hunting and gathering come in for you? Obviously, like I said, with Auckland, the hunting park can be a challenge at times, but gathering's right there on your doorstep. What's the favourite, and how does it all come about for you? When did it start?
Yeah, I guess the hunting and gathering has kind of been part of my upbringing, and I guess a lot of people are quite similar in that respect. I grew up in Hawke's Bay, in Napier, so I lived there for 17 years, and my sort of hunting journey would have started off when I was following Dad around, chasing ducks in the Hawke's Bay, and sharing the side by side with the three brothers, and hoping to get a shot every now and then. And then from there, I started getting into other things like fly fishing, surf casting, and then a move from Hawke's Bay down to Otago. Went down to Otago University and studied physical education there. So I had to find some new hunting grounds. So the week was sort of made up with adventures to the Catlins, or I did a bit of hunting through the Waikaia, Blue Mountains, and then also down through the Caples Valley, Greenstone Valley, and managed to sort of keep the bug alive for the trout fishing as well. And followed a few mates around. Yeah, we did a few trips down there, found a nice duck shooting spot, and from there ended up moving. Well, I got married, and then moved over to the UK. So was based in London for 2 years, and we did a bit of pheasant shooting over there, pheasant beating. Where you're driving the pheasants for the others to shoot along the gullies there. And yeah, sort of stayed in touch with the hunting and gathering aspect through there, which was quite nice. I was missing home a bit, seeing everyone going on raw hunting trips and shooting trips. So it was a bit hard to sort of see that sort of stuff. So yeah, at the end of 2 years, we came back and sort of settled in Auckland. So I've been back in Auckland for 7 years now. We've got 2 little techers, so they keep us occupied
Yeah.
in a nice way. And yeah, I'm personal training now, and predominantly my hunting at this stage is chasing deer. So in the kaimanawas, puriora, and kaimais. I've been into the iraweras a couple of times as well. But yeah, I just sort of want to try and get out to as many opportunities as I can. I also, do duck shooting every year. Shot a few goats, turkeys, do some small game hunting as well. But yeah, I think mainly the venison chasing is the key pastime for me in terms of what I'm after at the moment. I also do a bit of spear fishing too. More so during the summer months, to be honest. Just slightly more comfortable. Taking kingies, and yeah, managed to get about 4 or 5 kingies this year. So that was really cool, and just something entirely different. Kayak fishing, probably go kayak fishing maybe 9 or 10 times over summer, and yeah, just do what I can really when I'm allowed out. Yeah.
So on that, does it mean that having to do that bit of drive, you go for an expedition, or you just take what you can get?
Yeah, I sort of have to plan those trips around the family and around the fitness business, and a few other sort of occupations as well. So when I lock them in, I'll generally go away for 2 or 3 nights at a time, and that quite often is a drive. So from Auckland, if I'm heading down to Kaimanawas, then that's a 4-hour drive. Puriora is a bit closer. Iraweras is close to 5. So you've got to sort of factor in the commuting time, because it makes up quite a large part of your hunt. When you sort of look at it, you're like, well, it's taken me 10 hours to get there and back, plus there's generally a 2-hour walk in to the area that you're hunting, so you're commuting sort of 14 hours before you're even effectively got your feet in the bush type thing. So yeah, there's always that to consider. So we try and stick to spots which are closer, but then I guess the locality in which we're living, you've got some higher populations of people, so there's always going to be a bit of that hunting pressure on that dock land, and that's predominantly where I hunt, is Department of Conservation public land. So yeah.
Now I'm beginning to get familiar with your original neck of the woods. Managed to go on a hunt up the Kaweka, or a walk around really, up the Kawekas the other day. And I guess that brings me to the main topic for you, is that this particular block had a delightful 150 metre descent, which you then had to walk back up the other side and then do it when you came out again. So
Nice.
one thing, you see guys out there, the likes of Cameron Ames,
Yes.
there's Andre Alapati from Hunters Club. He's into his fitness hard out as well, and you sort of think, and I think back to probably the fittest I've ever been in my life, which was trying to play rugby sevens, and then going on a walk up Mount Roy, and then also around Hawea as well, and still being absolutely stuffed. How do you think the best way to prepare physically is for the mountains, and is there just a matter of that it's still going to hurt because the mountains are the mountains?
Yeah, mountains will be mountains, and I think it's sort of prescribe a exercise regime for everyone, because everyone's conditions are so variable and so different. Some people can just walk in off the end of a road, and they might be 20 it might be a 20-minute walk to where they're going. Other people, if they're going into a tar block or something like that, if they're walking in, it may be a 5 or 6 hour walk. But my sort of key message around preparing for the hills and getting conditioned for them is essentially you're trying to replicate the demands of the hills or the terrain that you are doing your hunting on, and you're trying to replicate that in terms of your training methods or your training platform. So whether that looks like 150 meter elevation gain that you're talking about, how can you replicate that when you're not in the bush or when you're not hunting? Can you find some steers around the place? Can you find a hill that replicates that particular thing? Also, to look at what are you going to be carrying, because if we sort of look at it in terms of our hunting situation, we're generally carrying something. So it might be that you're carrying your backpack in, your walk-in pack, and that may be 20 kilos. It may be more, 20 kilos plus a rifle plus water. That may be 25, 30 kilos for some people. So it's a case of getting conditioned to carrying that load. Throughout the day, we're walking around with a rifle, or it might be a bow. We've got a backpack on generally. So there's always the conditioning aspect to think of, what sort of weight am I carrying? What sort of inclines am I walking up? How long am I going to be walking, for during the day? If you are successful and you do get an animal, how are you going to get that back to camp? Is it going to be a big animal like a big red stag, or is it going to be something a bit smaller like a seeker or a fallow, or whatever that looks like? A wallaby, whatever it may be, a small pig. Can you carry that back to camp in the one go? Do you need to do 2 trips? So I think it's just about sort of knowing what your terrain is like, and then shaping your training environment and your training regime around that. So one of the best pieces of advice that I would give to hunters would be, don't make your training complex. If you're doing some big long pack walks to get into your hut or to your bivvy or to your campsites, one of the simplest ways to train would be to load up your pack, your walk-in pack, with that particular weight that you're likely to carry. So whether that's 20 kilos, load it up with some rice packets, or if you've got some light dumbbells in your shed, or you've got heavy gear, put it in the pack, and then just start hiking it up some of the local hills. May have to drive a little bit to get to them, but I think that's one of the key things is time on the feet, and actually doing those particular walks in the hunting boots as well. Because if you're not conditioning your feet to the boots will condition you in a bad way. So it's about trying to use what you have, and not trying to sort of come up with, I need to go to a gym, but just look around and use what you have. Those guys that are doing big long walk-ins, for tar hunting or fiordland or wherever that may be, they may be wanting to replicate that. They might want to do a longer walk on the weekends. Pack walk could be 2, 3, 4 hours. People who hunt off road ends, and they may only have a hunting radius of maybe 2 kilometres, and it's not steep at all. They can probably get away with some fairly minimal fitness conditioning for it. But I'm sort of the mindset of, look, you put a lot of investment into your hunting gear. You're out in the bush a lot, so it makes sense to prepare at the front end, put some time into getting fit, getting conditioned, and getting sort of used to the hunting elements, I guess, that you're going to encounter on the hills.
Yeah, and I think especially if you're like yourself and I, that the time that you get out there is crucial, and so you want to make the most of it. So being prepared is massive, so you can enjoy it.
Huge, and that's a limiting factor for a number of people that I've been hunting with, and it may take yourself, let's say, an hour and a half to get to your campsite, it might take, your mates or your colleagues or someone that you're bringing along for the first time. It could take them, close to 3 hours. So, when you talk about you're just going for an overnight hunt, you really sort of want to try and, lock in a pretty quick commuting pace to get into that spot and maximize that time that you have on the ground. There are ways that you can, of course, work around that. If you're going in with people that are not as well conditioned, one thing that I quite like to do and encourage with people that I go with is that, the person that's at the front, look, they might be better conditioned. Let them sort of start off 10 minutes ahead, and you can actually space yourselves out on the track that way. And if you sort of want to glass some clearings on the way through, you can do that as well. So it's not like you're just smashing off the other person behind, but they have the opportunity to, hunt along the way, so to speak, without feeling too responsible for trying to keep up.
No, that's cool. And so where did your connection with NZ Hunter come in? Is that from growing up in Hawke's Bay or something that's come about later in life?
Yeah, that's sort of just come about recently, actually. So I just joined NZDA Auckland branch about 4 months ago now.
Yeah.
And I think it's just from being ensconced in sort of that hunting community where you're constantly evolving, I think, as a hunter, and your skill sets are improving, you're getting connections with more people, and I think it was a relatively organic decision for me, but it was quite, I guess it was accelerated by the recent situation with the TAR Foundation and work that they had put in to kind of reverse the proposed TAR cull. And I sort of found out along the way that NZDA was relatively influential in sort of contributing, let's just say, some resource to that particular project, I guess. And I said, well, I'd like to be able to become involved in an organisation where we are looking after the future of our hunting for the next generation, so to speak. So it was just quite an organic decision, really. Just turned up to club night. They had a guy from Cazador there, Darius. He was showing his skills on the old knives and preparing a delicious feast, and I was kind of hooked from there. So yeah, it's been a great decision. So yeah, club night is once a month. Get together, have a bit of general conversation about people have been out hunting. There'll be some conversations around improvements for the club, or people want to get up and say anything, members notices. They'll talk about party hunts that are coming up, range days, any topical conversations in the political space. I think it's just a great way to meet other people that are keen and wanting to sort of share some of their resource, their knowledge. And what I found quite good is because from the outside, I thought it was very much kind of like an older gentleman's sort of a club type of thing, but there's quite a variety in the age range of the members. So, whatever sort of your stage in life, or your hunting ability or resources like, there's an opportunity for you there to connect with people that are on the same level, and continue learning along that whole process as well. So yeah, I've really enjoyed becoming a member there.
Yeah, nice, and it's absolutely same with me. And I think what happened with the TAR last year is almost forced a sort of a renaissance when it comes to the NZDA. Even myself, that was what, as soon as I got back to New Zealand, I was going to get along, and hey, it's put me in contact with some great people already. And sure enough, up at the hut that I walked to, ran into a bloke up there who's just moved to Hawke's Bay from up north, and the first thing he did as well was join the NZDA, motivated by the same things. He's the African guy, and he's absolutely stoked at the accessibility within New Zealand, and like yourself just said there, wants to protect it, and one of the big things that's coming out and you're seeing in the publications, you're hearing on podcasts like The Educated Hunter, is just that the numbers on the paper are what matters, and when things like that tail card come about and they say, well, who cares? And a whole bunch of hunters say, yeah, we care, but well, who are you? Where are you? That's where the NZDA really comes in, or things like Seeker Foundation and Wapiti Foundation, and now the TAR Foundation. Yeah, so it's cool. And so when the NZ Hunter, the magazine and the show, mentioned you the other day, what's the deal with that? You're doing some features there?
Yeah, so the NZ Hunter, basically that's a series of fitness articles. So the one which was just released in the last issue, that was just a relatively generic framework around the articles that I'm going to be putting through as a series. So that particular one just sort of set up the series. The next issue is going to be featuring, some ideas around, cardiovascular. How do you train the cardiovascular system? The one following that will be about mobility. So how do we become more mobile, more functional? How do we incorporate aspects of stretching? The one following that is about core strength. So how do we develop that core strength? How does that translate to hunting? How can we do it better, without doing all of the I need to go to a gym type of conversations? So trying to keep everything as practical as possible. Then the fourth article will be about building muscular endurance and strength. So what does that look like? What can we use at home in the backyard to develop that strength for the hills? How do we build that muscle endurance? What does that look like? Is it circuit training? Is it pack walks? Is it pull-ups? Is it, what does that sort of look like for people? And it's trying to be as practical as I can be, so people are not limited by the equipment that they do have or that they don't have. And then the final one is about body composition as well. So body composition refers to obviously muscle mass, fat, your mineral content and your water levels. So those four key elements. How can we look after our bodies? How can we potentially reduce the amount of body fat that we're carrying on the hill? How can we increase that muscle mass, that lean muscle mass? What is the ideal body weight, potentially for a hunter? Obviously, there's different hunting builds and somatotypes out there, but how can we, get ourselves as functional as possible to perform on that hill? So, yeah, it's just a generic article for the first one, and then there'll be 5 key fitness fundamental articles following that. So hopefully it covers all bases and gives the hunting population a few ideas around what they can do. Obviously, there's nothing better than going out hunting and doing it, but if we can't all hunt all the time, what can we do in the meantime to sort of keep that level of preparedness up, I guess? How does that look?
Nice, mate. And so have you found the writing process? Is it something that you've sort of dabbled in prior, or is this a new string to your bow?
Well, yeah, I've done a couple of articles for various fitness magazines like Sketches Fitness Products. I've also done a bit of work with Nadia Lim as well for her Fresh Start book. So that was creating the fitness component of that particular book. And yeah, a couple of other little sort of side projects as well around managing the injured athletes. So a little bit of stuff around rehabilitation for shoulder injuries or hips and various things like that. So yeah, I don't think it's been too challenging in terms of what to write. I'm actually finding it difficult to keep to the word count. So I must be I don't know, trying to explain everything too much. But it's as I said, it's quite difficult to try and get that information in a generic way, but also trying to make sure that people at the bottom end of the fitness level, it's relevant for them. But then you've also got other people at the top end, which are out hunting all the time. They're walking through tar country all the time, carrying animals. So where can I sort of find the top, the bottom, and the middle end, and making it suitable for everyone in terms of literacy as well. Not trying to be too complicated with any of the wording or anything, and just making it as digestible as possible. So I found the writing process, relatively smooth. I know the editor's wanting probably some better photos from me, but a lot of solo hunting, so I've got to maybe employ a photographer somewhere along the way.
Yes, there's a few going around now. I heard, I think it's J.E. Wild. He's looking to film hunts for amateur hunters out there, just so you've got something to record and look back on, which I think is a pretty fantastic idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then a few more publications around as well. Yeah. And so what do you think? What's your sort of process? How do you get started when you go to write an article? Obviously, there's a bit of research involved in your prior knowledge as well. What do you like to do to get it out before you send it off to the editors?
Yeah, I guess what I try and sort of write at the start is obviously just an overview around what the concept of the article is about, and trying to place that in quite sort of simple terms. And then in the middle sections of the article is a little bit more prescriptive in terms of what to do, how to do it, what to expect, what sort of equipment do you need. I think because I've been in the personal training and the fitness industry now for about 15 now, sort of a lot of it sort of just comes through naturally. And with the style of training that I like to do myself and with clients, it's about really trying to use what you have. Whether that's in the environment around you, you can do a lot of training just with a Swiss ball and a skipping rope, using your body. And I think a lot of people just get really fixed on, I need a gym membership to go and do bench press and pull downs and all these sort of things. And I think you need to find things that are convenient and stuff that is relevant to your fitness level as well. And starting with bodyweight exercises is extremely efficient. So that's what I've sort of tried to cover off in the article. And obviously, if people have access to gyms, then that might be the next level for people. But I found the writing process fairly good, and it sort of brings back some nice fresh ideas as well. There's obviously a little bit of research involved along the way, but it's sort of come fairly naturally as well, because I sort of try and incorporate a lot of those training modalities in the work that I do. So it's just bringing it and putting it into some text, I guess, which is sometimes the challenging part.
Nice, man. Well, it's probably getting on in the evening, and I know you gym personal trainers have all sorts of hours to get up in the mornings, especially when I was in Australia going to the gym. I was starting at 5, which I don't know if it was good or bad for my health, but anyway. Where do people track you down, Michael? Because what you're putting out on Instagram, I think it's bloody good stuff.
Yeah, so I'm across a few platforms. So I'm on Instagram, so I'm just at Chase and Gather, and then on Facebook, Chase and Gather. And those are sort of the main 2 platforms, social media platforms. I've also got a YouTube channel as well, which is Chase and Gather. So just to keep things consistent across the board. And that YouTube account, I guess I've got sort of 12 or 13 videos on there now. So there's everything ranging from some fitness workouts that you can do at home. There's seeker hunting, red stag hunting, duck shooting, kayak fishing, how to make venison jerky. There's one on how I also process deer skins as well. there's a bit of different things on there, and I think that particular resource on YouTube is just so I can sort of, provide a bit of instruction around how I sort of do a few things. Obviously, everyone does everything a little bit differently, but yeah, I'm really keen just to keep learning and keep developing what I'm doing, and getting a bit better. Filming would be quite nice too. Yeah.
No, that's good, mate. And as you know, you learn as you go, and that was what you said at the start about what you do with your crew is, always asking questions and always learning and developing, which is a pretty good way to live your life. Is there any other sort of thing that you'd like to leave the audience with? Maybe a question or something that you do live your life by, or something that's come in handy?
Yeah. A bit of life advice which I learned from a fairly wise man. In terms of your mindset, and this obviously can apply to everything across the board, but he said to never criticize, condemn, or complain. So he said there's 3 C's, and if you can try to limit how many times you do those 3 things, criticize, condemn, or complain each day, your mindset will be hugely transformed. So that's something that I try and live to, and try and be someone that is encouraging. I guess in terms of a hunting context, I'm always trying to put out messages about safety first. So I did some courses through the Mountain Safety Council and through the Training Corps, and a few other various training organisations. So safety first, results second, and just be responsible as a hunter. I try and be as resourceful as I can with the animals that I acquire. So I'll try and use all of the meat off an animal. I often bring out the skin as well, and just apply some ethics to the hunting. Well, be respectful of animals, and just treat every hunting opportunity as a great opportunity, as a blessing, actually, because not all countries sort of have the right of access and the abundance of game that we have to choose from. So I just consider every opportunity to go out in the bushes as one that's priceless, and try and just continue to lead by example, and be ethical and humble in what you do as well, and be consistently and constantly learning, asking new things, improving yourself, not to be big-headed, but just continue asking questions and have an open mind.
Brilliant, mate. That's awesome way to finish, and I'd just like to thank you so much for your time. I've learned a lot as well. It's been wicked, and cheers and all the best with chasing gather. It sounds really good, and I'm going to be following along, and people can find all those details in the show notes, so it'd be easy to track you down. Wicked, mate. Have a good evening.
Yeah, hey, for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Cheers, bro.